Each of us has incredible capacity for problem solving, for creating new things, for building. And when we combine that energy that we naturally have with those around us, it can multiply. So I've always thought it's interesting, though, that the moment so many of us step into the workplace or log on, that will to innovate, the desire to innovate, is actually suppressed more often than it's inspired. I think the biggest question about that, with 70% by some measures being disengaged in the workplace, the big question is, what do we do about it? How can we actually go from the desire that we all have intrinsically to innovate to a discipline of innovation in our workplaces, in our organizations? Well, 4 years ago, my company was feeling that suppression, was feeling the grind of project work. We do great work. We've done great work for 10 years, but still, even in an open, transparent culture, it became very present that we weren't unlocking the full potential of our team. That's when Zach, one of my right-hand teammates at the time, came to us and said, hey guys, what if we just set aside project work for a day? Just set it aside, don't answer email, just do projects of our own choosing, form small teams, and see what we can build in a day. What do you say? Well, we said yes. And it took some guts because that costs money when you don't bill to the clients, right? Some of you are thinking right now, yeah, innovation is great, but what about the hard work of getting projects done and keeping the business running? But we said yes, and I'm so glad that we did. Because 4 years later, that process we now call our lab program has led to 100 prototypes, some of which have become products that are on the market now, and some of which have led to amazing partnerships otherwise not possible, like the work we're doing with Lego right now. So how did that happen? And what have we learned in the past 4 years that any organization can take to turn innovation from a desire into a discipline? I believe there's actually 3 things you can do. Number 1, drawing board. Drawing board is something we do. Once a week, 30 minutes, on a Skype call or in person, where we leave the dust of the day behind, set aside project work, clear some time just to talk about ideas, under our broad umbrella of using technology for good. We keep it really positive, we keep it really informal, and it's a very energizing time. Any idea goes. That's drawing board. The only thing you can't talk about is projects that you're doing outside that. Number 2, lab day itself. So on lab day, all that ideation that happened each Thursday on drawing boards culminates. Teams form, a scope for something you could try to tackle in a day forms, and teams get to building. And it's so very fun. Some teams have a working prototype at the end of the day. Some teams work on process improvement for what we do every day. Whatever happens, by the end of the day, they have something tangible, visual, that gets their idea out of their heads into reality. It's a kickstart. And number 3 is show and tell. That's right, just like elementary school. We take all the projects done, and with an hour, we divide by the number of projects we did, and each team gets to demo what they did, show it off to the rest of the team. We give positive feedback, again, pretty informal, give them a little bit of a structure for how to pitch it, and maybe they get some ideas for how to extend that in the next lab day or through the next drawing boards. Drawing board, lab day, show and tell. And one of the coolest stories to come out of our program is a little iPad app called My Story. My Story began as Brian Vanaski, one of our designers, with an idea to use the iPad for kids. That's it. I wonder if there's some way we could use the iPad to help kids. Then he noticed his 8-year-old sister have trouble with a story one day. She's trying to tell a story, really intelligent and innovative thinker. But she was frustrated. She came into the room and couldn't get the story together and organized. The light bulb came on, and that became a lab day project that became the app My Story, which you could download today. It's been around the world, over 250,000 downloads, and has been used in in education scenarios all around the world. One of the most poignant stories we have coming out of this innovation is a special education teacher who tweeted us and said that a young girl in her class who hadn't spoken for the entire year so far pressed the recording button in my story and found her voice for the first time. And that right there is what brought it home for me, because you can't dictate innovation. You can't think of it as a program for the bottom line. What you can do is provide a space for it, turn the desire into a discipline, and watch the my stories that happen. You might be thinking, I forgive you for thinking it. You're forgiven, pre-forgiven. That's all well and good for a creative team like yours, TJ, but I'm in a corporation, organization, big nonprofit, big bureaucracy. What can we do? Well, I think it's about a choice. Even Pixar, one of my most beloved organizations, did what I would call a lab day. Last year, in March, they were facing a problem. They needed to cut production costs by 10% because of lower DVD sales and a variety of other costs rising in the production scene. But they wanted to keep the Pixar quality that we all know and love very high. So rather than kind of meet in the boardroom and figure out a way to cut the costs and then usher that message down to the ranks, they said, we're going to take a day. We're going to break into small teams. We're going to let the people of this beautiful company figure out the solutions and bubble them up from the bottom. They called it Notes Day. Thank you, Pixar. Thank you. They called it Notes Day, and they had pretty much a series of drawing boards to plan it out. Organization goes into it, and the idea is, as Ed Catmull writes in his book, Creativity, Inc., which I urge you all to read, the ideas were able to be implemented within weeks or months, some of them hugely disruptive, came up with apps that changed the way they did some of their post-production work, but some of them, and this is what I love the most about discipline and innovation, there's a resurgence of energy within Pixar that he said was unparalleled and sorely needed. Raise your hand if energy and rejuvenation in your company is sorely needed. I'm reminded of a quote often attributed to Gandhi. It says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I think if Albuquerque and all the organizations we all serve and spend our lives with every day embrace the discipline of innovation through some structure like what I've talked about, if we embrace that, I believe we can build the change we want to see in the world.